that we can meet the 2030 goals, and if that is really the case. I'm Sanjida from Nisai Global School, Bangladesh, and I will be your moderator for today. Before we move on to introduce our esteemed panelists, who are professionals who have been working for years in the education, technology, ICT sector to help develop curriculums, to help schools understand how to move forward with the education itself. So before we begin with them, I would like to give you a little abstract of what the discussion is going to be and why exactly are we here today to discuss about these. EdTech largely is considered to be the solution that will help us reshape how education is delivered and perceived in the future, and the future being right now, in order to meet 2030 goals. But is this actually happening? If so, how exactly is it happening? Over the past 2 to 3 years, we have observed the exponential rise in various tech platforms across the globe to deliver education. For example, Baiju in India, Light of Hope Tech Academy in Bangladesh, Exceed Education in Southeast Asia, and Zeropan in Europe, and many more such examples we know. The COVID-19 pandemic, however, has added more value on the existence and the role and also the need of these edtech platforms, to the extent where even different government bodies are also rushing to seek possibilities in order to continue education. However, there is another side and another concern to this discussion: how robust our education systems are to meet the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. Being able to answer the dynamism of the current education system, current facilities, how much the curriculum has developed over the years will decide what education is now and might be post-COVID and beyond. The pandemic has allowed us to explore the possibilities and also have allowed us to go around and explore the idea of online and blended education and how it affects the schools, how it affects the students, how is it affecting the parents right now. So moving further, we right now would love to introduce our first panelist, Mr. Paul Keenleyside, who is the Executive Director of Nisai Education Trust. Paul spent over 20 years as a special educational needs teacher, school leader, and advisor in both mainstream and special education settings. Paul is focused on the roles of innovation and disruption in education system and how this might enable us all to meet the UN 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. So Paul, moving on to you, I would like to start with a few questions, but before that, welcome and thank you so much for your time over here. And this really, really means a lot to many of us. We also have some schools who would really like to learn a lot that you have to share with us today. So my question would be, Paul, I would ask you in two different tiers, and you can take on the virtual floor that we have today, and I'll let you lead the discussion from there on. So could you highlight your experience at Nisai Education Trust and as an advisor at both mainstream and special education settings, and tell us, one, what have we observed about some of the emerging issues for students in exceptional circumstances trying to stay in education under the stress of COVID pandemic? And two, how might this help us think about meeting the key aspects of UN SDG 4, and how might this support future work if we can bring it up together with learning from other organizations, especially international ones such as UNESCO, IITE?
Thank you so much.
Would you like me to, sorry, I'm so sorry. Would you like me to share your presentation right away?
That'd be brilliant, Sanjida, and thank you so much for the opportunity. And hello, everybody out there. So, Sanjida, if you just put up the little presentation that I can hook everything on, that would be awesome. Thank you.
Great, doing it right now.
There we go. So, everybody, as Sanjida very kindly said, I've been working in this field of disrupted education for nearly 30 years now. And I think that what we're seeing at the moment is 10 years of change in 12 months. What I've also been very privileged to do is to work with the team in Nisai, both in the UK and abroad, who have had a real impact in terms of developing new ways of looking at online and blended education, and also in terms of thinking about what that really means for young people and adults in terms of their onward progression, their pathway. And this is why the SDGs are so important. So if we could just, Sanjida, would it be possible to make that a little larger so we're a full screen? So in terms of thinking about the conversation we're having today, the first thing is we're never likely to see so much change. But what we do know is that change adversely affects those who are already vulnerable. And I'm going to say that people who are vulnerable are those who are not accessing education effectively at the moment, and that it's going to push them further and further, or it has pushed them further and further from the marketplace. As you can see in the slide, you know, we're what the military would call a VUCA environment. You know, it's volatile, it's uncertain, it's ambiguous, and it's very, very complex. And I think we're all looking for, as we said at the start, this magic bullet, the panacea that will provide the answer for us. I certainly know here in the UK, we've had some amazing support from the EdTech companies. Microsoft with their team product. We've had great support within the schools from companies like Zoom. But I think the question is, and of course from the government in setting up their own responses, but I think the question is, what does this mean for our most vulnerable, disadvantaged learners who are furthest away from the system as it stands? Okay. So if we've had 10 years of change, my question is, have we done 10 years of learning? And if so, what is it that we're learning? Are we codifying it? Are we sharing it? How much disruption has there really been? So if you look at the presentation, we're really concerned with children completing primary and secondary education, ensuring access to learning, access to skills, increasing the number of young people who've got those skills for employment, entrepreneurship, and then providing a safe environment. I can quite happily say from my experience and the work that we've done at Nisai over the last 25 years that we can do all those things using technology, but I really don't think that at this present moment, technology can do it on its own. I don't think it's the magic bullet, but I think it's part of, if you like, the gun that fires the magic bullet. Sanjida, could we just go on to the next slide? So what we need to think about here is what's actually been happening. So I've done a little bit of research or looking at some of the outcomes here in the UK for our most vulnerable learners. And the NFER, the National Foundation for Education Research, did a really quick dip into remote learning across the country as to what was happening, talking to teachers, talking to head teachers, talking to principals, talking to students and learners. And we found some pretty shocking stuff in there. The first one is that if you're vulnerable already, if you're at a distance from learning or you're in a deprived community, COVID's made it worse. Okay, we can all get that. But what's even worse is that it's worse more. Really hard to get a head around. So if you're disadvantaged already, that disadvantage gets worse. And when they dug into it, drilled down into it, these are the factors that they found, okay? Pupils haven't got access to IT. This is really obvious. This is really, really obvious. If you've not got IT, you can't get into remote learning. If you're vulnerable, you're less confident. And we can see there that they showed that 82% of their vulnerable pupils were not accessing remote education. 60% of young people identified with special educational needs and disabilities were not accessing learning. And we also say that nearly 50% of young carers. So using these tools is possible, is potentially very useful for all those children who already have access. If you don't have access, these tools, online platforms, using different sorts of remote learning actually make disadvantage worse. The other thing they found that was really interesting was that talking to somebody matters. If you've got an online conversation going on, rather than, as we would say, call and respond or non-synchronous education, the teacher sets work, the work is done, the work's sent back. If you have something that has a conversation and a relationship, then actually those young people do much better. So that's the first broad outcomes that we have. Okay, thank you, Sanjida. The next slide, please. So at the same time, in April, the Education Endowment Fund researched about what does all the other evidence tell us? And there's some really key points here. So for those of us that are teachers, this is quite reassuring. Teaching quality is more important than how the lessons are delivered. So even if you have got all the technology, what you really need is good teaching. And this is something that Nisai has done for over 25 years. Really interesting how they use the platform, the virtual school, to be able to deliver high quality education. They also found ensuring access to tech is the key. So we have to make sure that we can have as many platforms as we want, but we've got to make sure that people have access to them. Peer interactions help. Absolutely. We're back to being part of something, about our well-being. And we need to support pupils to work independently so we can use different tools. And that also comes out in terms of different approaches. There are times when something like Zoom might be appropriate, but there are times when a classroom with different technologies within it is more appropriate, or even a tool that sits outside of the classroom. We have to think about all the different tools that technology gives us and how we deploy them as educators. So just the final slide, what I did do was think about, is there a checklist from what we're beginning to learn at the moment? Is there a checklist in terms of using technology at a time like this? Is there a checklist that we can use to support greater efficiency and effectiveness around the SDG 2030 goals? And we kind of came up with 4 very, very key, very simple ideas. The first one, and by the way, you have to have all these in place. All these in place. The first one is digital capability. You've got to be able to get to it. And we think about Canada in Ontario, where they suddenly realized that over a quarter of children actually didn't have digital capability at the start of the pandemic. You've got to be able to have digital literacy. You've got to be able to know what to do with machine. You've got to know how to access the platform. You have to have personal well-being. That is to say, you have to be in a position where you want to learn. And as educators, we know this. And the final one is that you've got to have great teaching. I personally am a great fan of the UDL, the Universal Design for Learning. So we've got to have in every platform, in every classroom, in complementary education like Nisai Group's Global School, we need to have multiple means of engagement, representation, and expression. So what I'm saying here is that EdTech is not the magic bullet, but it's really important in delivering high quality education. But there are a number of other factors that have to be in place at the same time. Thank you. Okay, Sanjida. So those are the key points I think are raising from what we found over the last 9 months.
Thank you so much, Paul. I personally do have some follow-up questions, but we need to hold on because we have other panelists waiting for us as well. But we will come back with more questions for you. And I believe our audiences are also sending us their questions. So we'll just have to hold on a little to it while I move on to introduce Miss Natalia Amelina, who is representing UNESCO Institute for Information Technologies in Education, also known as UNESCO IITE, and is currently the Senior National Project Officer in Education and also the Chief of the Unit of Teacher Professional Development and Networking. Hi, Natalia. Welcome and thank you so much for being with us here today.
Dear colleagues, dear Sanjida, thank you so much for inviting me for today's webinar. I'm really glad to be here with you and to share our experience with you.
We are very glad that we have you with us over here. So Natalia, the way we will be moving forward is I have a few questions, which is around your expertise. So I will go around with the questions and then you can answer them accordingly. So moving on to the questions that we have for you is, so first of all, as far as we know, your activities are focused on new model ICT and AI-based approaches that is used to teach and to understand the learning environment for the 21st century quality education. So why don't you enlighten us a little more about your project and how it's focusing on the UN 2030 SDG 4? And how would you relate the impact of these projects to the current pandemic and beyond? And the other questions that I would have and would like to ask right away is, as we know, you are also involved in making ICT a major part of education. So if you could highlight how are skills revolving around ICT going to support the future talent base? Or how is it relevant in the 21st century skills?
Okay, thank you, Sanjida, for these nice questions. Let me start with some words about my institute, about the UNESCO Institute for Information Technologies in Education. UNESCO IITE is the only UNESCO Category 1 institute that holds a global mandate for ICT in education. Therefore, its mission is to promote the innovative use of information and communication technologies for achieving inclusion and equity, quality of education, and lifelong learning as main components of the Sustainable Development Goal 4. The Institute launches and implements joint initiatives and extra budgetary projects together with entities of the UNESCO system, international and non-governmental organizations, educational institutions, research centers, and private sector. IITE is also involved in the design and development of courses, workshops, webinars, publications, and other activities aimed at empowering teachers to improve the quality of education and fostering the potential of ICT for education transformation. It is extremely important during our pandemic time and post-pandemic time. And I would like to draw your kind attention to some of the projects of IIT that we are implementing in order to meet Sustainable Development number 4 by 2030. The first one, the first project is implementing in cooperation with the Weidong Cloud Education Group. This is a company from China. UNESCO IIT is implementing this extra budgetary project, which is titled Building the Future Schools Through ICT Competency Development, aimed at investigating of new ICT-based educational environment and promote new competences of the 21st century skills by identifying, piloting, and supporting emerging approaches and practices used in technology-mediated school education in 6 targeted countries. We have 2 main regions. They are African region and Central Asia region. For African region, we took Namibia, Nigeria, and Mauritius, and for Central Asian region, we took Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and Kyrgyzstan. Recently, we have decided that Rwanda will be also one of our additional countries in and targeted countries in African region. Within the period of this year, starting from February, UNESCO IITE conducted a thorough study in different regions worldwide in an effort to facilitate a better understanding of the current status of the ICT use for skills development and highlight promising practices. UNESCO IITE has also initiated conducting an in-depth study of the current status of ICT in education in the target countries in Central Asia with due regard of the COVID-19 impact on teachers and learning and the availability of national education systems for implementing innovative ICT-based approaches. For another project that I would like to share with you, this is a project with Huaxi Education Cloud China. This is also a Chinese company. UNESCO IITE implements an extra budgetary project which is titled Connecting Schools Online for Intercultural Teaching and Learning. This project is aimed to harness interactive and online tools to enhance teaching, learning, and intercultural dialogue so that young people become active learners and global citizens. Sorry, citizens participate fully in society. The project has been launched in 8 countries of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and is being carried out jointly with the National Commissions for UNESCO and the governmental officials of the above-mentioned countries. Within the framework of this project, our institute is joining forces with Hedu company, this is Huaxi Foundation company, for the organization of International Online Forum Connect for teachers from the targeted countries. Within the framework of this project, we will have it in December and unite. We hope that we will unite teachers from UNESCO ESPINET schools from Shanghai Cooperation Organization countries for the prior competition and workshops on advanced tools on online learning, raising awareness of solutions to SDG-related global issues. And finally, I am very glad to say that we are very privileged to work with our great partner, Nisai Group. Within the first quarter of this year, UNESCO IITE, in partnership with Nisai Group, launched the joint project titled Transforming Teaching and Learning at Schools for Achieving Sustainable Development Goal number 4. Turning theory into practice with ICT. The primary goal of this initiative is to support promotion of the Sustainable Development Goals, recognize and encourage excellence with the use of technology in the UNESCO ESPINET schools and general secondary schools in the Russian Federation. So we have only one targeted country in this project. This is Russian Federation. And UNESCO IITE shortest 10 schools for the first year of the project implementation. I invited students of the selected schools to investigate and learn about the role of education in Sustainable Development Goals by taking part in the competition of videos. The chosen students have started undergoing the 10-week SDG course that will allow them to consider the changes that they can make to their everyday lives in order to design the sustainable city of the future. In addition to it, UNESCO IITE also invests efforts on inclusive and equitable education worldwide, and especially for African region, in incorporating these targets into two following projects. In cooperation with the Chengdu Fund, UNESCO IITE launched a project which is titled Integrating Artificial Intelligence and Digital Innovations to Strengthen Inclusion and Equity in Education in Africa. We have just started this project in the middle of 2020, and it is aimed to facilitate bridging the digital divides in the targeted countries. In this project, we have only 2 targeted countries. They are Rwanda and Mauritius. Through promoting integration of artificial intelligence and advanced digital innovations in education to strengthen inclusion and equity in teaching, learning, and monitoring of education and lifelong learning. And for another, for us, very important project is cooperation with World Wide Web Consortium, W3C, and together with this non-governmental organization, we have developed a web accessibility massive online open course for teachers and specialists working with people with disabilities. This course is aimed to introduce and improve knowledge of the web accessibility principles, components, barriers, adaptive strategies, and the international W3C accessibility standards, as well as to provide a strong foundation for making websites and applications work well for people with disabilities. As of now, it is around 16,000 students from more than 150 countries all over the world took part in this training. So it means that this MOOC, this massive online open course, is very, very popular and up to date. To sum up, it is worth to mention that the forced lockdown demonstrated in the implementation of ICT and demonstrated doubtless advantages of the use of online tools for education purposes, which add overall value, relevance, and sustainability of the above-mentioned projects during and after the educational crisis caused by the spread of COVID-19. New technologies, including artificial intelligence, in this regard, hold great potential in providing educational institutions with necessary solutions and tools for maintenance of the undisrupted learning process for every student, leaving no one behind. And very, very shortly, I know that I'm taking probably more time than it is expected, concerning the 21st century skills. Let me inform you that development of ICT competency of teachers contributes to the future sustainable schools and societies by creating a solid base for ICT-based learning environment. Therefore, enhancing effectiveness of students' knowledge creation and retention, and providing teachers with wider pool of resources, best teaching practices, and professional development opportunities. ICT-enabled educational environment also encourages students to think independently and find innovative ways and solutions to social concerns and SDG-related issues that make critical thinking and problem-solving essential 21st century competencies. Technology support communication and collaboration between schools and countries, which eventually foster development of global citizen skills and lead to joint of efforts to create more peaceful and sustainable future. I think that I will stop here because I know that the time is limited and we would like to have more discussions. If you have any questions, you are very welcome.
Yes, thank you so much, Natalia. Thanks a lot. We do have questions and we will actually get back to you probably after our next panelist is done, because we are actually taking all the questions also from our audience who would like to have their questions placed. So for that, we'll be waiting till our next panelist is done. And thanks again a lot for your time and helping us understand so much about the projects that UNESCO IIT is doing. So moving on to our next panelist, who is someone that a lot of us already know, especially the audiences from Bangladesh, Mr. Munir Hasan, who is the head of youth program at Prothom and general secretary at Bangladesh Mathematical Olympiad Committee. Mr. Munir Hasan is changing the way the math is being taught and understood by everyone in the country through daily mathematics publications in national newspapers and new textbooks. Also training for teachers and mathematics festivals that reach tens of thousands of students and their families. Mr. Munir Hasan, thank you so much today for your time. Thank you so much for being with us here today. So moving forward, I have a few set of questions that I would place to you first, and then I'll be giving you our virtual floor for you to answer these questions. So you have worked very closely with students, educators, and government bodies in Bangladesh. So my question is actually in three different tiers. Where do you think the formal education institutions were prior to the pandemic in terms of the progress that we were making in comparison to the global education facilities? Where do you think this pandemic has brought us to? And how do you see things recovering after this pandemic? And what steps do you think we should be considering as a country, and especially to recover our education system? The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Sanjida. Just give me a minute so that I can ask my people around this floor. এই ওদেরকে একটু মানা করো তো, বলো যে আমি deal করতেছি। Sorry. So
No
I'm in my
problem, no
office,
problem,
okay,
Mr. Munir.
and there are people who
No
are
worries.
doing this thing. So thank you, Sanjida and Nisai Bangladesh group, and thank you, Natalia and Paul for their eye-opening discussion. So what actually I wanted to add to this discussion is where we are in Bangladesh. So our education system, we got it from the British system and the Pakistan system, and we want to make some sort of changes. But the overall education system is the system that we have had in say 100 years back. So this is mostly the evaluation system is mostly on the written part, and we don't have any system of assignment and the homework and other things. So that in this pandemic we really faces a problem how to handle this pandemic. You see, we have a study in national student assessment in 2015 and 2017. We found that the student who passed from the primary school, that is for the fifth grade, they have only 20%, 17 to 20% actually acquired the skill that is been required to have grade 5 students. But on the other thing, you see that we are one of the country which actually achieved the MDG's goal to bring all the students, all the child in the school by 2015. Actually, we achieved it in 2013. We actually bringing 98% of our children in the school, in the primary school. But what happened is that when they goes up one grade to next grade, and they actually been frustrated because they don't have any planned exit way. So the students are dropped out from step by step, and when it is in the 10th grade, it is say from the 44.3 million, it is dropped to 1.8 or 1.5 million. But at the same time, we found an interesting thing in 2010 is that we have a similar technology and vocational education system, and they are the systems are fine, but people don't go there. So in by 2010, we have only 1% enrollment in Tibet, but it should be around more than that. So in the last 10 years, we have tried, and now it is on the 17%. Again, you see, in 2011, we have introduced ICT education. It's a compulsory for the high school student. And 2011, we introduced that one. And by step, and by 2015, it is from grade 6 to grade 12, we have achieved this ICT education. But again, we found that since the teachers are not ready for this transformation, for this ICT subjects and others, so ICT became the second most horrible subject in the higher secondary education in the exam. So it is after the English, it is now the ICT, which is dangerous for the students. So incidentally, this year is happened to be the last year for this current curriculum, which has been started in 2011. We have a curriculum lifetime of 10 years, and every 10 years we evaluate and do some changes in our curriculum. But by this time, we have decided to make an overall changes in the curriculum, which will be supposed to be implemented from the 2021, but now we are shifting it to 2022. So one thing that we have introduced in 2011, we have introduced ICT for the high school student. Now we are thinking of introducing coding for the grade 4 students, I in the primary school and others. Okay, so there is a move in the curriculum in the system that we have to go with the ICT and technology, and we have to be at par, almost at par in the idea and in the idea level, but not in the implementation level. You see, when this pandemic had started, we try to somehow accommodate our teaching in some sort of online teaching and something. So there are three traits you can identify. One is that we requested some of the teachers to come up in the studio and do their teaching. They do their taking class in the blackboard, in the whiteboard, and we just recorded them and just air it in the television. We have a one terrestrial channel. So we started from 9 to 5. We have started classes for class 1, class 2, class 3, and all the grades are there, and they go for the classes. So some of the teachers, they are a little bit smart. They started their own live classes in Facebook, and they have do their recording, and some of them actually go for live classes. And only a very few of the teachers, they try to make the real e-learning system. It's a very few. So what happened, actually, we identified that the teachers are not equipped, and students don't have the access or connectivity. So students don't have the connectivity in terms of equipment, in terms of bandwidth, and in terms of affordability. So recent study shows that the more than 20%, 40% of the students in the high school and primary school, they don't have the connectivity and or the devices they need to connect to a classroom. This is not only because of the financial ability. There are other things is that in our country, the parents don't allow the students, don't allow their kids to equip with mobile phone, the laptop and others in the school, for the schools and others. So usually some of the students, they get access to their parents mobile phone or parents laptop, and they need to give this time they need to have these devices of their own. The second thing is the electricity. The outside the Dhaka, outside the capital, we don't have a stable electricity, and this is the reason that the students are not being able to follow the classes in the television, which is particular time. You have to log in at this particular time of the classes. If you miss it, you have to miss it. So from the mathematics Olympiad committee, we have organized a teachers training. Okay, so we have organized a teachers training. We realize that these all these are possible hazards, so we give them laptop, We gave them mobile connectivity, and we also try to connect them in a Zoom classes, okay, Zoom based class. And what we found is that the some of 50% of the teachers are not able to connect because the home where they don't have a getter connectivity to have the video class on mobile or laptop. And some of the teachers do not connect at time because of their electricity problem. So realizing all this effort, recently we have tried to implement a trained teachers, primary school teachers for mathematics training. And what we actually have done, besides the hands-on training in the classroom, in the training academy, we also put our training material in website. The government has a e-learning platform and input all our materials over there, and we found a really good statistics. We found that the around there are for the this is for the government primary school, and we have 65,000 government primary school, and around 3.75 lakh, which is the 375,000 teachers. Of them, more around 200,000 teachers actually enrolled to this mathematics education program. So we actually really getting an idea how we have to handle this type of things and pandemic in the future, and how we have to connect our rural people to a to a better education system. So this primary education project gives us an idea that if we have a good content, good delivery system, and teachers, and the good academic facilitator, who are the teachers, then we will have a global level education for our future generation. So government is putting a new curriculum from 2022, and we need some sort of global education system which could help us to help our students through education, educators through the system, and to the students, so that they can achieve their goal to reach by 2030, or the country's goal of 2041, having a to become a rich country by that time. So I think I should stop here now, and we'll listen to the other people, and also if you have any questions, I will like to answer that.
Thank
Over to
you
you,
so
Sanjida.
much. Thank you so much, Mr. Hassan. These were very informative, and I think these were certain concerns that a lot of educators, a lot of parents, a lot of students looking forward to. So we are really glad that we could address some of these concerns, we could address some of these questions. And I believe we have quite a few questions from our audiences, and quite a few questions that I personally also would love to ask to you and our other panelists, both Paul and Natalia. So if we could move forward with the questions that we initially had, from some of them being from the discussions that we were discussing, the panelists were discussing. So I think the follow-up question that I particularly would like to place is to Paul. One of your slides, you discussed about how the disadvantaged students are currently in a situation where things are even worse for them. So right now we are in a situation, even Bangladesh being the country where we were looking forward to a very good development, we are also fearing a lot of, as Mr. Hassan mentioned, that we're also afraid of a lot of dropouts. So what do you think that could be a possible, probably not a magic bullet, but a probable solution for these students to actually look forward to, where they're not, at least not back to where they were 10 years or 20 years ago?
Yeah, I think that there's two bits in there, Sanjida. There's some really interesting research has been done about holidays, which sounds weird, but we know that in the summer break in countries like Canada, the US, and the UK, there is 6 months gap is created between the most able and the most disadvantaged in that 6 weeks in terms of their learning position. And some really good work by Todd Cunningham at the University of Toronto about he's called it the COVID slide. It's how that gap has got bigger and bigger. Now, for me, that is analogous to what we're seeing in the communities, as Munir's described at the moment, the have-nots reaching further away. Part of the response that we can make to that is, one is to think about why we ever have gaps in education through the year, and to think about what education might look and feel like. The second one is to think about where education takes place. And we're absolutely seeing this issue, as Munir's describing, about kids not being able to get to technology, teachers not being able to use it. So I think we need to be really creative about time and how we use the technologies. So there's something really important about having experiences that are recorded and live so that people can get to them when they can get to them. So it's both synchronous and asynchronous online education. And also in terms of being able to deliver, if you like, lessons or knowledge that can be downloaded at one time, worked with, and then brought back. So it's kind of, we've something that we were thinking around when we were looking in, particularly in Africa. And it was great to hear about all the innovation there, is that we're talking in South Africa, that kids can only get to electricity and data if they walk. And that's not that often. But if they can get there once a week and download all they need, then they can take it away, work on it, and then come back and reload. So I think we have to look at using the online tools in a complementary way. We need to do it all the year round. And I'll come back to the point that I made at the very start. We have to have a good understanding of what great teaching looks like and how we can use the different tools. So that would be my answer to that.
Thank you so much, Paul. I really hope we do work around it and can figure out the situation, because more or less every country.
I want to add one.
Yes, please.
Sanjida, I want. Yeah, thank you, Paul, to mention that this pandemic actually creating gap almost 6 months for those who have access and those who have not. But in Bangladesh, we found actually this gap is been more widened, because my daughter is in a school in the capital, and he's been all the time, she's busy with her classes through online, and she's doing so far. But the government primary school, the rural schools, rural academies, actually they are not in the school games, and the classes that actually we have arranged from the government is a 1 classes per class in the television. Okay, so it actually, I think that the country like Bangladesh, the gap will be more than 6 months. It might be an 1 year gap, and after this pandemic, it will take us really challenges to make them closer, to make them more closer in the education.
I think, Munir, I agree with you. The 6 month gap is just in a summer holiday on a normal year. It's just in a normal year. So when we're looking in the COVID pandemic, and we look at the children across the world in developing, whatever nomenclature you want to use, we've got children who are already disadvantaged, who are possibly 3 years behind by the time we come out of this pandemic, or more. So I think that we've got to be really creative. I'm with you 100% on this. We've got to be really creative about how we use these tools and how we partner with the EdTech companies to be able to deliver something really different. Because they've just fallen further and further behind.
So, Sanjida,
I believe, yes, Natalia.
Sanjida, I just want to inform you also about the recent initiatives in the area of COVID-19. Actually, on the request to the UNESCO headquarters and UNESCO Institute of Educational Planning, our institute was starting and is starting now to work with two countries, Rwanda and Mauritius. We are going to implement a very rapid assessment on the situation, distance and remote learning of children, of students with special needs, first of all, people with disabilities. And we are going to understand the situation in terms of infrastructure, ICT curriculum, and integration of ICT into curriculum, competences of teachers in terms of ICT competences, first of all, and what is more important to us to understand their skills in terms of distance education with such children. And in addition to it, we are going to understand the motivation of such teachers in this situation, in the pandemic and post-pandemic situation. And in Mauritius, in addition to it, we hope that we will learn some good experiences, because Mauritius is one of the countries in the African region. However, we understand this that this is an island, this is a small island, and they have a great experience in terms of development of not only of high-tech technologies in inclusive education, but also low-tech technologies, including development of special TV educational programs for those for those students who don't have access to internet connection. But anyway, we are at the very beginning of this research study, and we are cooperating in this field with NGOs in Rwanda and Mauritius, and this work will be done under the United Nations partnership in line with the United Nations Convention on the rights of persons with disabilities. So, and I hope that in the beginning of next year, I hope in February, we will have some more deep understanding of these countries, of countries of the African region who has some experience in this field. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this information. I think there is a lot of inspiration that a lot many other countries can also take from these results, and a lot many countries are actually waiting for these results, because based on that, we understand how particular region has to adapt, learn, and get along for the next generation's education. Following up with that, I have a question for Mr. Munir Hasan. That is, so we were discussing about, how can the government, or however it is, whichever organization it has to be, can propose to move forward in helping the disadvantaged students. In a budget perspective, how do you think the government is funding or is planning to fund for these projects? One of the attention for the focus is on the disadvantaged students, but what about the other students who are not disadvantaged, but they also need the attention because the current pandemic has really disrupted a lot many other systems of education as well. So how do you think the government, according to you, the government can move ahead or is moving ahead with those necessary fundings or the necessary initiatives?
Thank you. It's a good question. First of all, the government is trying to solve the some of the problem that is been facing by the students. Okay, so some of the public universities, they offered their students of laptop and other devices to be connected in the system. But at the same time, it has been realized that the most of the students who are in the rural area don't have the devices, don't have the connection, and don't have the affordability to get the bandwidth. So the universities, most of the public universities, they have decided not to take any exam in these times. So there are no exam, that they are having classes, but there is no exam in these times. For the schools and high schools and for the primaries, there is no such initiative. Some of the initiative has been taken by the private sector entrepreneurs, and some of the say some of the organization. They're working for the education, but not for the whole system or something like that. So government has, you already see that we could not take our examination of 12th grade. So we have decided that the examination result will be published on the basis of their 8th grade and 10th grade result, which is ridiculous, but we have adopted this one. This actually create a problem for the universities next year, because the universities, we have 150 universities, and they are all capable of catering almost 500,000 students. But this year, there will be more than 1,300,000 students will be pressing for these 500,000 seats, and that will create another problem, and we have to solve this one. So now, what actually is trying, some of the universities trying to come up in a cluster, so that they could organize the uh, admission test, and they can enter. And for the Paul and Natalia, we have a admission system. Not like, it is not like the universities in the east or west. It is a pure examination system, and other than writing an essay, they have to appear in an exam. It is sometimes it is an exam, written exam, and then an interview, so to get a chance in the universities. So this will also become very difficult. So government is trying to have to solve all these issues, but there are other pertinent issues. So I think government needs some sort of support and ideas from the other side. Hopefully those who solve, like the Nisha, where you already solved some of these problems, so you can come up with the plan to help the government and the education system. The private education system is as big as it's the government. We have 65,000 government primary school and 65,000 private primary schools. So it is almost equivalent. So it is important that some of the organization like Nisai or something like that have to come up with a probable solution, so that we can implement that one in the Bangladesh area. That's it, I think. Sanjida.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Um, that was definitely informative, and I believe that Paul would know this better. That Nisai had been involved with uh, various skills training, training students, preparing students for various courses besides the academic as well, with the government as well in different countries. So, Paul, if you could just help us understand a little bit further about what are the different other courses. I believe some of this discussion were also around some of the SDG courses that Nisai provides globally to students. Some of these also, I think, was in partnership with IITE. So I think, I'm not sure if Paul is the perfect person or Natalia for answering this, but I would like to go with Paul.
Okay, so I think that Natalia is no doubt the better person to talk about IITE, and I will defer to her on that particular, because of the detail and her depth of knowledge around the Russian system in particular and its application. But we're working in partnership around developing the SDG 2030 courses with them. But Natalia, I think, should talk about that. I just would like to come back to the point you made at the start around skills courses as well as education, vocational skills. The question here, I think, is actually about, it's actually the core question that you came to, Sanjida, which is about how do we do learning? Because whether it's skills-based, and we have done this whole, we work with students all the way through to 25, some of whom are vulnerable, some of whom are on skills acquisitions programs and vocational work. But what this is really all about, I think, is how online providers of whatever type and ilk are able to complement and add to the system as it stands. I think this is the critical point. And Munir, I know you've been very, what can we do that's different and that everybody can get access to, whether it's about skills, with adults and young adults, or whether it's with core learning around, literacy and numeracy with those younger pupils. I think we have to stop. Oh no, what we've learned, I think, as Nisai, is that we're here to complement the system. There are times when a learner will benefit from being in a different kind of group, in a different kind of setting, online, with support. And there are times when they need part of their skills courses to be doing practical work. So we think about a school that Nisai built, the first school we built, and that actually every child did vocational learning as well as online learning. Okay, so they spent all their time doing core skills of things like literacy and numeracy and science and IT online, and then they spent the rest of their time in their, as we would say, their trade, whether it was construction or childcare or whatever it was, and we had specialists to do that. I think that's a perfect analogy about how online education should complement physical education and be in the right space. You can teach skills. If you have the curriculum and you have great teachers, we can teach. But what we also need to be able to do is to have physical education around application of skills too. And it's how we can use the technologies and the platforms and the different learning tools knowledgeably to be able to support everybody. So rambling answer, but I think quite important, because I don't think I see the technology piece around skills and around education as separate from the physical, traditional, if you like. I think it's how we blend them together to complement each other. And I'll kind of an example from a school that we've worked with and we know well in Bristol, which is for young people with autism. They're continuing, even though they're in education every day at the moment, they're continuing every day to have time online. And the reason they're doing that is because they're seeing this as a core learning school for the rest of their lives. Yeah. And because they feel that they need to be prepared for that. So I'm coming back to this thing about complementing, working together and working out which are the best bits that can be delivered in which way. So yeah, we've done skills training and we do skills courses for adults and have done for a long time. But I think it comes back to where does it fit best and how can it add the most value?
Thank you so much. I think this also brings me to the point that to our topic, that is, if EdTech is actually the magic bullet, which we realize that it's not exactly the magic bullet, but it definitely is a very, very vital point to very vital thing to have right now, especially right now. I think from what Paul mentioned is that we are also trying to explore what we know as a blended learning, whether it comes in the form of online, whether it comes in the form of mixing online and offline. So currently we are also, many institutions are also looking at the blended learning platform or blended learning system, how it can facilitate schools, how it can facilitate educators, students, cater the needs of special students, as disadvantaged students as well. That is also something that we are currently is a very big discussion that everyone around the globe is looking into. Also in Bangladesh, I believe many schools, many parents particularly are very worried because no one around the world was prepared for something like COVID-19. So no one could see the future, that this is how 2020 is going to look like. This is how the future of education needs an instant change to move further. So coming to the question that I partially asked Paul about the SDG courses, I would like to go to Natalia now to tell us a bit further about how these courses, and also focusing on ICT, how are these preparing, or how do you think all around the globe will it help prepare students from various backgrounds for their future?
Okay, Sanjida, thank you so much for making a focus on this very important issue. First of all, let me invite all specialists from Bangladesh to the UNESCO IITE website. Please enter our website and you will see a great number of absolutely free and open resources. Please take a note that our target audience are teachers, first of all, administrators, of the schools, not only school, but educational settings and policymakers. Unfortunately, we don't have the capacity to work with students and to develop school programs and curriculum. But I hope that during the next year we will be very close to the topic of digital citizenship, and we hope that also students will be involved in some trainings and will take part in our webinars and learn from our materials. But anyway, speaking about the teachers, I think that teachers is the main force of transformation in the educational system, especially during this crisis of the COVID-19. And during the pandemic, our institute has joined its efforts from with a number of companies, corporations, organizations, and partners all over the world. Let me try to share the screen. I don't know, because it's a new platform for me, but let me share screen in Earlys with 2 monitors. I don't know how to do it with it. Okay, probably I will try next time, but let me inform you that we have a number of partners which are helping us
Natalia, I think we can't hear you.
Dealing also in the field of education with a number of teachers, schools everywhere, absolutely everywhere. And you can find a recent online platform, a recent tool developed jointly with Google. It was developed jointly by UNESCO, IITE, and Google Education. We have developed a tool which is entitled Teach from Anywhere. Teach from Anywhere. So this is a hub and collection of instruments that will encourage a teacher to work in a distance mode. I think that since Bangladesh and other countries can use English language, I think it could be an appropriate tool to motivate and encourage teachers. But this is only one example, and I'm sure that speaking about the situation, for example, in Bangladesh, first of all, every government is under the pressure during this time, and I would like to thank Munir about sharing with us that about the details of this situation in the educational settings. I think that UNESCO and UNESCO IITE being a organization which is trying to support UNESCO member states will be in a good position to provide its assistance to this country in cooperation with Nisai. And first of all, what we need to know, this is more a kind of question to Bangladesh colleagues. We need to know the initial level of teachers in terms of ICT skills, because we don't know from which level we need to start professional development. So for this to do, I'm just wondering if in Bangladesh you have already conducted any needs assessments, any any assessments of ICT competences, skills of teachers, for us to understand their background in this area. This is my first question. I don't expect that you will provide answers right now. Just this is a start for a discussion, I would say. And in addition to it, we also need to understand the level of infrastructure, ICT infrastructure in schools, and first of all, in the remote areas of Bangladesh. We need to understand the connectivity, We need to understand the level of hardware and software used in schools, used in universities and vocational schools. And in this way, we had also a great experience. For example, we have a great partner which is ITU. ITU, this is International Telecommunication Union. This is also United Nations agency as UNESCO. Yes, and they are dealing with international information and telecommunication technologies, including connectivity. And they can say what is the level of infrastructure in general in schools, what kind of connectivity they use, what is the hardware and software and so on. So we need to know such a background to start working more closely with Bangladesh, with your country. So and again, in general, we will be glad to provide more support to this country, to your country, and we need to have more discussions on it. And I think that it will be nice to invite policymakers, governmental stakeholders to this dialogue, because they are responsible for this policy, and we need to understand their opinion, their feedback on these issues. So that's probably all from me at this time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Natalia. Thank you so much. And thanks a lot for addressing some of the very important issues regarding how ICT-wise certain areas, in terms of certain areas being in Bangladesh or even other countries, we need to first check out whether or not these students have the facilities to receive the facilities that we are trying to bring them to begin with. Moving on to some of the questions. Actually, we have a lot of questions from our audiences that that we have been waiting to ask out. So I'll make it very quick. One of the questions that we have is there any qualitative, quantitative differences between online and physical peer interactions? I think also, isn't the digital divide simply an expression of socio-economic inequality? How would you like to answer that?
I kind of knew that was coming my way. So, so Ahmed, there is, to answer both your questions, is yes, from what we've found. In terms of the question around interaction, we've done a lot of work with NISA Group and also with the Stafford University over the years about what people need online. And so, for instance, we don't use camera and things like that because they want to be, the young people want to be focused on the learning. And they express themselves in different ways, including chat room, chat boxes, all those sorts of things. And the teachers can work with them. So there is a qualitative and quantitative difference between the two. I especially think there is a qualitative one, but I think that it's an accepted qualitative one. I think people know what they are doing with it, and they're capable at all ages of putting it into different spaces. I think that also brings me on to the point when I think about my 4-point checklist. There's something there about the well-being aspect. I think people need to be in a state emotionally and in terms of their readiness to learn, to be able to work into those spaces. I think that's the first thing. The second one, absolutely, is about socioeconomics. I mean, we're looking at a have-not world, you know, and whether it's going to be water or whether it's going to be technology, this is actually, in my opinion, the crux of the problem. And we found that, I mean, Munir, I was absolutely with you when you're describing what's happening. I think every country in the world, no matter how developed or, you know, wherever you are, or however wealthy, we've actually seen this, and it's been a shock. The reason I talked about Ontario was because Canada is always seen as being, you know, kind of up there as a G7, so on and so forth. They only had effective connectivity for the first 100 miles in Ontario from the border with the US. So connectivity gets more difficult the further you go up. So there's like 2,000, 3,000 miles where the connectivity wasn't as effective. It was there, but not as effective. And they were shocked to discover how many of their children were not able to access online education at home because they didn't have the kit. We found the same. I think every country's found the same. And we need to find a way, I don't know, I've been, sort of banging a soapbox here. We need to find a way to address that inequality, and for the world in the China, this is a huge issue, to actually accept that there is something about digital rights, or the right to digital information. In the meantime, I do think that we need to think about what we need. That is to say, simple can be really good. We found this, we've been developing a literacy tool called Units of Sound, or repurposing, redesigning, and bringing it into sort of up to date. And what we found was people want to be able to use digital learning on really, really simple tools, low cost, simple tools. The reality is, does everybody really want Apple this or Google that? Oh, I don't mind. In actual fact, simple is really good. How do we get simple, low cost, robust kit that will last to people so that they can use it on offline, and so they can access it, they can access digital learning in the way that they need to access digital learning, not in the way that everybody thinks that they ought. And actually that reinforces the socioeconomic gap.
Thank you so much, Paul. Thanks a lot. I really hope that does answer the question that the person had. So the next question is, which are the countries that have some best practice that we can follow for Bangladesh? This is to Natalia. Which countries do you think have some best education practices that can be followed in a country like Bangladesh?
Thank you for this question. Yeah, every country has its own unique way. I don't think that we can provide, the ready solution to Bangladesh or to any other country and to say, please follow this way. It's not possible, absolutely. And currently we have a number of research studies that we will be glad to share with you the results of these research studies, and we will bring some light in terms of COVID-19 challenges, good practices, and overcoming of barriers. But again, please don't take it as a ready solution. I think that you can monitor our website and you will find some interesting solutions for your case, probably.
Thank you so much, Natalia. Another question we have is, this is I think to Natalia as well. Does the UNESCO have any future plan to work jointly with Bangladesh government schools to develop the remote teaching capabilities and educate both teachers and students? Would you be happening to know this?
Currently, I don't know about such plans. You are asking about UNESCO in general, and I cannot reply for UNESCO in general. I can reply only for my institute, and as far as I know, we don't have any special plans for Bangladesh, but this is absolutely a case of discussions between the government of Bangladesh and our director of our institute. So in case there will be any special request from Bangladesh government, so be aware that we will very quickly reply to this request and provide professional development or any other support necessary for Bangladesh. So everything is starting from the official request from the country.
Thank you so much. Another question we have is, how do you want to see the capability challenges for our country chronologically, like infrastructure, connectivity, government education policy, digital devices, financial positions, etc.? I think this is very precise from Mr. Munir Hasan, but I think something happened to his connectivity. we will definitely hold on to that question. But these are definitely very important pointers that we would like to have. Mr. Hassan, are you back with us? I think he's still connecting. Could we have the next question? In this situation, without taking any examination, what are the methods that have been considered to assess the new ways of education? Paul, I think this is your expertise.
I do think that obviously each country has their own system. I do think there is something here about ongoing assessment and using the capability that the potentiality that's there within blended learning and online learning to be able to develop assessment as you go. Continual assessment. I think for me, this is my own personal view, is absolutely critical. But I'm sort of in the same place as Natalia in that it's very much dependent on the country and the culture and what people have comfort with. We are currently still in a position where we're debating. We have clarity that we'll be doing examinations in the UK in this coming year. Are we exploring options around using technology to examine in a different way? No, I don't think we are at present because I don't think there's enough bandwidth. But I do think the use of blended or complementary learning means that you can assess in different ways. Yeah, and my personal view has always been that should be about continual assessment, but that's me. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Paul. Do we have more questions? I believe we have a lot of questions, but they are being filtered, so they are more relevant to the topic. This was for Mr. Munir Hasan. Someone specifically asked it. How do you want to see the capability challenges for our country chronologically, like infrastructure, connectivity, government education policy, digital devices, financial position? So I think what the person is trying to ask is, what are the challenges in order to achieve these capabilities for us as a country? Mr. Munir, if you could answer this for us.
Yeah, I think the most important part is the understanding of the problem. If we decided, if we really mean that there are problems, then we can solve it. You see that the financial ability or the infrastructure ability all actually needs a good political commitment and to allocation of the resources in a right way. So my opinion is that if the government is try to resolve these issues and they really wanted to solve all these issues, then we can solve all these issues in step by step. Let me give one example. You see that the national telecom policy that stated that by 2023, the all school, 70% of the all schools should have a broadband connection. By 2023, it means only we have 3 years. So if you really wanted to do that one, then we have to allocate resources. We have to allocate schools connected to the high-speed internet system and others. So if only having a policy, it doesn't matter. So we also need a really commitment from the government, from the highest part of the government, and also we want to see the implementation of the policy directive as well. So I think it is everything has been quite possible, but we need real commitment and the resource allocation properly. I think it's possible.
That's definitely a very positive note to learn that something that we're looking forward is something that that students in the need to move forward towards their future is on the way, and we are looking at it from a positive perspective. We will take this as the last question because we are about to run out of time, so I don't want to hold everyone up. So the question would be, in this situation, without taking any examination, I think we just answered this question. So I believe this stream will be up in a bit So you can definitely check the answer. In your discussion, I found we need to have our own resources who can work with UNESCO IITE to develop teaching tools defined with our own language. What do you think? I think this was to Natalia.
Yes. Thank you very much. Yes, sometimes we are working not only in English language, but we use local languages. But in your particular case, we need to start with the understanding of the current situation in Bangladesh. We cannot take, for example, some existing course or training and just translate it into your local language, because we believe that it may not meet your demands and needs for a current situation. That is why I think that we need to have more discussions on the governmental level with policymakers who are responsible for this, for dealing with such issues. And we need to understand the current situation in education in Bangladesh. And first of all, in terms of the use of information and communication technologies, connectivity and other issues should be revised in details. And after that, we can think about possible cooperation, possible actions in this field. And currently I have shared with Armina a link to our website with a collection of resources from our partners, which are, again, are absolutely free. And you can find there a lot of examples of guidelines, online tools, massive online courses, and many other tools, many other resources in line with the COVID-19 and pandemic situation. So your teachers are very welcome to visit our website and to learn from our partners and from IITE publications. So please do use these resources. They are mainly in English, but unfortunately we have not translated it up now. So in the future, we will be very glad to discuss more closely with Bangladesh stakeholders about possible cooperation. Let's see how we can support you.
Thank you so much, Natalia. Thanks a lot. In fact, um, thanks to all the panelists, thanks to the audience who made their time today to be a part of this discussion. We still have a lot of questions that we could not look into, but we would definitely love to address each and every question uh, in a written format, or probably in the next discussion, because this is just the beginning of a lot many other discussions, especially from Nisai Education Trust. We hold on a regular basis, we hold a lot of webinars. So the questions will definitely be answered, probably in a written format, or probably if you follow us on our blog, then we would be loving to answer your questions. Once again, I would love to thank everyone who were with us uh, to be a part of this discussion. Special thanks to all the panelists who made their time out of their day, out of their work, to answer these important issues around education, technology, EdTech, and the future of how education is going to be delivered and perceived. Given the fact that a discussion like this cannot be just one-off, it needs a constant understanding, a constant way of testing and looking at the results of how this can be made better for the future, for the students to grab the opportunity that they deserve and that they need to learn for the future. We look forward to having more of these discussions. Uh, Given the amount of questions right now, I can see we will be having more of these discussions. But for today, we would have to wrap it up, given the fact that we are out of time. Thank you very much, and we'll be looking forward to our next discussion very soon. Thanks again, Mr. Munir Hasan. Thank you, Natalia. Thank you, Paul, so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you and take care.